Hey, good afternoon. My name is Ryan Brown. I am the PIO for this incident. This incident is called the Butternut Fire. It's located in Great Barrington, Massachusetts. I want to start by giving you a brief synopsis of what brought us here today. In the early twilight last evening, Great Barrington Fire Department was notified that there may be a wildland fire on East Mountain, which is the range behind us. By 9 o'clock, they had crews on the fire, and they had which basically means they observed the fire from a safe distance, making sure that the public and the firefighters were always kept safe. Early this morning, we started mobilizing local crews for the purpose of fighting this fire. We have a number of agencies involved, which I will run down. But first, I want to introduce to you Chief Fire Warden of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, Dave Cellino, that is going to talk about the fire hazards that Massachusetts has been faced with. Tremendous problems this year. Dave?
All right, thanks. Yeah, folks, so I'll just give you kind of a state overview. I'll give you a regional overview as well. We find ourselves here. It's a story that really started in end of September, or actually end of August, and then through September. So through September, we had all of a sudden a rapid onset of a big rainfall deficit. We worked ourselves into October. So October is a repeat where we, in some cases, the most rainfall we had was a maximum of like a half an inch, right? And then we work ourselves into November. We find ourselves getting continuously into that same drought pattern. In October, we saw wildland fire activity ramp up. And on the 6-year average in Massachusetts, we typically would see anywhere from 15 to 20 wildfires in the month of October. And we went over 200 fires this year in October. And in November, on the 6-year average, just to give you sort of a feel for the extent of the situation, 6-year average is about 20 wildfires in the month of November, and we just went over 400. With big acreages, large fires, and it's all the result of drought-driven indices across the state. So it's lack of rainfall to start with. The lack of rainfall has a huge effect on the fuel conditions in the forest. And so every day that we go with no rainfall, lower humidities, dry air, and then drying winds like we're seeing today with wide open skies and direct sunlight, those fuels are just cumulatively, consistently drying out more and more every single day. And it's the larger fuels now that are the problem. It takes a long time to dry those 8-inch or 10-inch logs or those dead standing trees. It takes a long time to dry those out, and they are dried out now where they are burning easily and being consumed in any one of these fires that takes hold. And so that's what we find here in Great Barrington on the Butternut Fire. That's the scenario. You can see the fire behavior behind us. That fire is chewing through that pine stand up there in the ridgetop. It's a backing fire right now, but it's a backing fire against the wind because all of that pine needle duff underneath it is super dry. It is ready to burn. So there's another factor that influences fire behavior, and you have to have an ignition source. We have not had any thunderstorm development in October or November with lightning. And so that we know that all of these fires are human-caused fires. So there's a human behavior factor. And so most communities across Massachusetts have burn bans in effect. Other neighboring states, in New York, it's the same thing. In Connecticut, it's the same thing. But day after day, our local fire departments are responding to illegal burns in the backyards of residences or campfires. Many of these fires are starting from abandoned campfires. And so our message is just simple. Until we get a break in the action here, weather-wise, please, please follow the warnings and the messaging that you are seeing out there. It's for real here. There have been 2 firefighter fatalities in our region at the start of this wildfire run, one in Connecticut and one in New York, from folks fighting these fires. And we've had a lot of near misses from dead snags coming down. That's why the folks here at the Great Barrington Fire Department made the right decision to not engage in this fire last night. This is not threatening any values at risk, it's doesn't. There's no benefit to putting lives at risk ahead of it. So that's what we're facing, and we ask the public to really cooperate with us through this till we get out of this with snow on the ground. Right.
Is any part of this contained yet?
There's no containment on this. Now, to get containment, you really have to anchor that fire to something solid, where it's not going to burn, it's not going to break out of the perimeter. And a fire like this, that's rugged in the terrain that it's in, it is not uncommon to see days go by until you see some sort of containment, and that's by, getting cold suppression, out along the perimeter. And these are going to be long events.
How do you tackle a fire like this one?
It's a well-organized effort. First of all, it's a huge collaborative effort and a partnership. In Massachusetts, local jurisdiction has responsibility for the fire. So it's the local fire departments that are bearing the weight on these responses, and then we bring in the state partners. We're here to help them out with our wildland fire experience, and organizations like the Emergency Management Agency, Department of Fire Services. We all bring support logistically, mainly, and then kind of subject matter experts and in wildland fire to the table.
How much property was lost in this fire?
No, there's no property lost, actually. So fire is a natural event on the landscape, right? So one of the things is this forest is burning today, and it's not the first time that it's burned, and it's probably not going to be the last. So the fire effects are a natural effect on the forest, but to date, we don't have a clear acreage on it because we haven't had a chance to really accurately map it yet on the ground. But it's a large fire. It's probably going to go at least 100 acres, and it's going to change. You can see it sort of slowly progressing in size up there today.
I see that you guys also have the helicopter up there pouring water on
Yeah.
it. Is that the best way to handle a fire like this, on top of trying to keep it mitigated to a certain area?
Yeah, the tactic makes sense because it's really difficult to put firefighters right directly on the line on the steep ground that's up there. And again, we talked about that. What's our number one priority here today? It doesn't matter what size the fire gets. That's a natural effect on the landscape. But what does matter is that every firefighter comes off of that hill safely and returns home tonight. Shift. So that's the first priority.
How long do you think it's going to take?
We've got fires this size across the state that are going into their third and fourth week. And this is really it's a fire situation that is somewhat comparable to what we see out west. It's different landscape, a different fuel type, but the conditions are similar, right? It's drought driven, so these fires are going to burn deep. They're going to burn in heavy fuels, and it's going to take a long time. It takes a season-ending event now, which shouldn't be that far off, right? It's snow, or it's going to be several days of precipitation that really soaks into the fuels.
How close to this fire really getting out of hand did we come?
Well, the one thing in our favor is that we had winds yesterday. In the eastern half of the state today, we're getting the winds still. But in the western part, the winds subsided on us. We're getting kind of a gentle northerly breeze today. But the winds are part of that weather element that we have really dogged us here intermittently it seems like every other day or every 2 days. So when you get winds you get 20-mile-an-hour winds behind this fire behavior in this terrain, it's called alignment. So the terrain lines up, the humidity lines up, the fuel moisture and the dryness lines up, and then you add wind to it, and that's what creates rapid rates of spread. They gave us a break today and gave us nice light winds, so that's why you're not seeing a huge amount of spread up there.
Just to clarify, firefighters are kind of keeping their distance. There's no one directly on the ground in proximity? There's
crews up there, but they're very strategic. So that it's over the next few days, and maybe with precip on Thursday, that's what we're all hoping for. We'll give that fire a chance to sort of back into some containment lines, and that's when all of a sudden you start to see the containment percentage appear on the map.
Let's talk about the precipitation. Like, what's that look like, and what's that going to impact the fire?
We'll take any precipitation right now. The prediction is, the beauty about this, the prediction is like a half an inch to an inch of precip, maybe an inch and a half in some parts of the state. That's not great news. We'll take more if anyone has it, because we're about 7 inches in a precip deficit across most of the state. What we will take is the duration of a day or a day and a half, followed by colder temperatures. So that means evaporate. So what we're hoping for is that we get at least 2 or 3 days of a break in the action where we're not going to get easy ignition. The problem is behind this is another dry air mass that comes out of Canada, and then we're back in the game with not a lot of precipitation predicted in the next 8 to 14 days.
Just to confirm, in your opinion, was the public ever in danger?
There's no values at risk on this, just by its proximity. And again, it's weather that has played that influence. So yesterday was a northwest flow, meaning it's coming in off of this valley and kind of blowing it up slope, and it hit the ridge top. So there's no structures downwind of that for quite a ways. And so the fire hits that ridge top and actually it breaks its momentum, if you will, although it is backing slowly down the other side, but it's a slow rate of spread. And so there's no values at risk immediately downstream and downwind of it at this point.
No evacuations either?
No, not that I know of.
How many crews do you have over there?
Yeah.
So we have approximately 80 assets on the fire right now, in between command staff and ground crews. Because of the informidable terrain, there's a lot of this fire we can't reach. So the ground crews are doing the best that they can, keeping the fire at bay. But really, if you look, that's a lot steeper than it looks. And some of you that have been around remember about 30 years ago we did have a tornado that came through that same spot. So there's a lot of vegetation and stuff that's making it very dangerous for crews to move in there. Safety of the firefighters and safety of the taxpayers was always our first priority here. So about 80 people on the ground, but I want to reinforce what Warden Salino said. At no time was the public endangered by this fire. Some people thought it looked pretty close, but we had a close eye on it, and at no time was the public in danger. I do want to acknowledge a lot of our partners from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. We have the Department of Fire Services, the Department of Conservation and Recreation, Massachusetts State Police, Massachusetts Army National Guard. Locally, all abutting departments to the town of Great Barrington have sent responses to assist us, as well as Southern Berkshire Ambulance Service, our good friends at MEMA, the Mass Emergency Management Agency, the Berkshire Sheriff's Department, and especially the town of Great Barrington as a whole. All town employees have been mobilized to support this effort, as well as the people of Great Barrington have been wonderful to us. If I can use that as a good transition, anyone that wishes to donate to this cause, we are accepting donations at the Claire Teague Senior Center from 8:30 to 3:30 today and 8:30 to 3:30 tomorrow. If you choose to bring water, you can bring it to right here where we are at the press place, and we'll disseminate it out to the crews from here. One caution to the people in town: with the cooling temperatures tonight and still active fire on the hill, we can expect smoke to lie low. That is always going to be a health concern. So we can expect to see that smoke, as we see it pluming right now. As it cools down tonight, that smoke to lay lower. So people to the south and west may experience the smell of smoke or actually see smoke. We will have people monitoring the scene throughout the night, mostly with drones, and no one will be allowed to be in harm's way. One other comment. The bridge on Brush Hill Road, which has been closed, was opened this morning in an emergency effort because there is a youth camp immediately on the other side of the bridge. Our initial concerns were for the youth that are still at that camp. It's still a very active camp. That was the safest and best way for us to move crews in there to take immediate action this morning. The bridge will be closed because it is relatively unsafe, and when it does get reopened tomorrow for emergency traffic only, it will be monitored by police. Aside from that, there was a question of where all that water that the helicopter is bringing earlier is coming from the snowmaking pond at Butternut Basin Ski Area, which, as the crow flies, is less than a mile from where the fire is. It's just on the other side of that ridge. I'll open it up to any quick questions.
So despite the drought, the lake or the pond where that water is coming from has been a good resource, or has been a challenge to get water?
It's holding up right now. We are looking at other resources for the bucket to use. That was the closest pond identified by the air crews, and they thought that that would service us the best at this time. Should that pond become diminished, we will move further out to other bodies of water.
I think I'm good.
Has there been any determination of really specifically how and the exact spot that this fire
There
began?
has not been a determination of the exact spot. We can safely assume, because there's been no lightning, there is no electric utilities or anything out there, that it was most probably man-caused. As Warden Salino did indicate, most of the fires that we're seeing are of human cause. And like I said earlier today at our morning press briefing, my friend Smokey Bear wants you to prevent forest fires. I think that's going to do it for us today. We do not have another scheduled press briefing today, but we will be operating at this site again tomorrow. Briefings will be most probably at 11 and 2:30 again.
Thank you.